Guys, at this point I'm changing locations just about as much as this movie changed writers. Gemini Man was directed by Ang Lee and stars Will Smith, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and Clive Owen, and follows the story of a hitman who is finally going to retire, but soon is called back into action when a younger clone of himself comes to kill him. Guys, this movie has basically become a joke at this point. The reviews for this film have not fared well at all, and also this movie's box office is really bad. This movie has basically bombed. And this movie, if you know anything about its history, has a really interesting history. In fact, this movie was going to be made in like 1997 with Tony Scott, and it's just now getting made. Now, either that could mean that it's a labor of love that has taken this long to finally reach the big screen, or it's a film that should have been left in the dumpster. And for the most part, many people are going to say that this movie is trash, that this is one of the worst films of the year, and I don't think it is that bad, but this is a very messy and bland and just not a very good film. But I can say that throughout the film's runtime, I was mildly entertained through all it had to offer. Now, the big selling point of this movie, from its conception in the late 90s, was the fact that it was going to be young versus old. It was going to have one actor facing off against a younger version of himself. And the reason why it took so long to make this movie was because the technology to de-age people just wasn't there yet. And in recent years, it has gotten a lot better. We can finally make people de-aged and it look incredible. All the Marvel movies have been doing this for a really long time now and pretty successfully, and just the new recent Scorsese film, The Irishman, has de-aging in it as well. So it's a very popular thing, and it seemed like this was probably the time to finally do this with this movie. And it fails, guys. But I can say there is some good in this, and especially with Will Smith. Will Smith gives a very committed performance and does very well in both the old version of himself and also the young version of himself. And that dynamic between them is rather interesting, and it's a lot of fun watching Will Smith play off Will Smith. And that stuff is really entertaining when the film is doing this weird kind of sci-fi hybrid with like an action film. That stuff is really cool and what made me kind of interested in the film. And also the action scenes, for the most part, I thought were a lot of fun, if not a little over the top and cheesy. This is a movie that is directed by Ang Lee, who did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and he's a great director in terms of action. And in this film, he shows that he still can do action very well. There is a motorcycle chase in the beginning of this film that is really exhilarating and really fun, if not some stuff that is a little unbelievable happens, but it's still really entertaining at least, and that's what I was looking for. However, this film's problems lie in the fact that, for the most part, aside for some action scenes and some actual good emotional moments that feel like if they were in a better movie, they would be fulfilling, this movie is mostly just really boring and bland, especially in the first act of this film, where not much is going on. And you just feel like you're biding time until you get to their first confrontation, which is really what happens. So you go through about 30 minutes of the film, and it's just a bunch of setup scenes that just drag on, and it's just not that eventful at all. But it does pick up in its second act and becomes just a cheesy, stupid movie. Guys, this isn't like some grand epic scaled action movie. It's not very thought provoking. It's really cheesy. This is definitely a film that I feel like would have worked better in 1997, but here it is in 2019, and it just feels out of place. It's not a bad film. There are some things that are quite enjoyable and quite alright. It's slow. It just feels boring at times, and also just the characters aren't that interesting. Will Smith, though he does a good job, there is not much to his character, and there's not much to Clive Owen, and there's not much to Mary Elizabeth Winstead. They're just kind of there in this film, and the only thing that is great about them is that these are great actors, and they carry the film as much as they can. So does Ang Lee. Ang Lee is a fantastic director, and I feel like he did what he could with this movie. And I think a lot of the problems that come down with this movie is really its script, and it was written by like 8 people. 8 people had their hands on this script before it finally reached, the making of the movie finally, and it really feels very messy and just like there was too many cooks in the kitchen, and that makes this movie really disappointing because there are some good things in it that some people I don't think are going to take away from this film. They're mostly going to see it as bad. But I do want to say that I, for the most part, had a fun time with this film, but I'm not going to remember this film. It's going to be very forgettable. The best stuff in it is when it is Will Smith versus Will Smith, which really isn't that often. There's a couple good scenes here and there, especially when it comes to the young Will Smith, the clone, and there's some really good stuff with him. And also, I will say, like, the CGI for young Will Smith is pretty good. I thought it looked really convincing at times. There might be moments here and there where it just looks a little off, but I didn't really have a complaint about that. I just have a complaint that this is just a bland, generic action film that really is not going to stay with you at all. I'm going to give Gemini Man a 5 out of 10. Well, guys, I want to thank you for watching this review, and yeah, as I said, I am changing locations for the time being, and I know I haven't said this in a review yet, but reason why I haven't been in my normal location is I sprained my ankle a few weeks back, and I'm still recovering from that, and it's getting a lot better soon, so sooner or later you're going to see me in my usual location, and things will get back to normal, hopefully very soon. But guys, I want to thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review.